Okay, so we are going to cover Chapter 7, the part of Chapter 7 that talks about array lists. I've actually added in eLearning that particular part of the chapter as a PDF. So if you don't have the book, don't worry about it. I've got that chapter covered for you right there. So talk about array lists. Now we talked about last week about arrays, and arrays again are just like having a bookcase. So I create a bookcase. The next thing I need to do is add bookshelves. Okay. So I keep adding bookshelves, bookshelf, bookshelf, and then bookshelf. Now I have to number these bookshelves because I have to be able to utilize these shelves by grabbing their index or element number, because each one of these shelves is called an element. So this first one is going to be 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this particular array has 6 elements, numbered 0 through 5. And we need to also tell what type of data is going to go into this array. And so in this particular case, we're going to call it, or say it's going to contain string data, which is textual. So the only type of data that can go in here is textual or string data. And the way we would declare this is we would say string space, we'll call it students. And then I put my left and right square bracket that says this is an array, and it's going to be equal to a new, this is the instantiation part. This is the part where it basically says we're going to create the bookshelves. It's a new string, left and right square bracket, but whether we need to put in 6 as our telling it how many bookshelves are going to be in there, 0 through 5. And if I need to grab the data from, let's say, shelf number 3, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, which is the 4th shelf, number 3 shelf, I would say sysout dot print ln dot sysout. There's another part in there. I would say students left square bracket number 3, right square bracket, and then basically do that. So that's going to grab the 3rd shelf, I should say the 3rd index shelf, which is actually the 4th shelf. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically print out. So that's basically kind of a recap of arrays. So this week we're going to cover this thing called array list. Now array list is a new class. It's just like a string class. It's a class, meaning we were going to go ahead and create objects from a class. A class is just a template. It's a blueprint. It's a way we create things, and then it has all of the pieces and parts that class has, but we basically, so a class we can't use directly, we have to create an object from it. So the very first thing it talks about is this thing called array list demo 1. So we come in here, and here's our public static void main. Here's array list. Now this is where it's different. In a normal situation, I would say int name list. See, I'm going to create a variable that's an int data type, and I would call it name list. Well, in this case, I want to create an array list called name list. But what type of data do I want to put into it? Well, that's where the the less than and greater than sign come into play. That tells it that is a certain data type. So I'm creating an array list, and all it will contain is string data type. So there's name list, new array list, string. So the same exact thing like we've seen with an array as well. So the new instantiates this as a new array list. It's called name list. Now, notice I didn't type in the number of shelves we're going to have. That's the great thing about array list. It's dynamic. We can add the shelves as we go. And that's what we're doing on lines 15, 16, 17. I'm saying nameless.add James, add Catherine and add Bill. So the add says I'm putting in a new shelf, I'm putting James on it. I add another shelf, I put Catherine on it. I add another shelf, I put Bill on it. So now I've got a bookcase that has 3 shelves, James, Catherine, and Bill. Then I go ahead and the dot size, that's a method that will go in and tell us how many elements we have. It will bring back the number 3, saying we've got 3 bookshelves. Then I'm going to go ahead and display all the names that basically are on the shelf. So I use a regular for loop, and this time I'm saying nameless.get, get the item from that shelf. Which shelf? It's the shelf at that index. So 0, 1, 2. Run it. It says the array list has 3 objects in it. That's what this is doing right here. The dot size. And James, Catherine, and Bill. So nothing too big there. I go to demo 2. It's the same exact code, except this is where we have that really slick new for loop that's available to us, which is going to be a requirement for tonight's homework. There it says for string name colon name list. Notice it doesn't have greater than, less than, the x plus plus, anything like that. This is really slick because it kind of works with you behind the scenes. It's doing a lot, but it does it for you. What it says is I want you to go through name list 1 element at a time. Grab each element and throw it into name. What is name? It's a string. So I'm creating a variable called name, which is a string data type. I grab name list 1 element at a time, throw it into name. So first time through it says, do we have an element at the first? Because we're starting at the beginning. Is there an element? Yes, there is. Throw it in the name. I come in here, I display it. I come back around, it says, do we have another element? Oh, we do. Throw it in the name. We step through, we display it. I come back through and say, is there another element? There is. Throw it in the name. We display it. We come back around, it says, is there another element? Oh, there's not. Then drop out of this for loop. So it's pretty slick. We're going to get the same exact results as the previous one. I click on it. It says A list has 3 objects stored in it. That's doing right there, the size. And then it basically displays each element one at a time through this variable called name. It's pretty slick. Okay, so we take a look at the next one, array list demo 3. Same setup. We got the array list, name list. We add these 3 names. I go ahead and display all of them. Not a big deal. Then I'm using this new thing, .remove. Now this is where the power of the array list comes into play. I can add shelves along the way, I can remove them. And this guy says, I want you to remove shelf number 1. Now remember, I've got shelf 0, shelf 1, and shelf 2. So Catherine is sitting on shelf 1. Then it says the item at index 1 is removed. Here are the items now. And it redisplays, goes through the loop and redisplays the array list. I run this. Index 0 is James, index 1 is Catherine, index 2 is Bill. The item at index 1 is removed. Here are the items now. Index 0 is James, index 1 is now Bill, and Catherine is gone. So again, if I wanted to do this with the regular array, I'd have to create a brand new array, new bookcase. In this case, I would have 2 bookshelves, and I would take just the names out of the old bookshelf, put them in the new bookshelf, and then basically delete the old bookshelf. Well, with array list, I can add and remove shelves. So it's kind of like those perforated, that particle board shelves you can buy today. We'll call it the IKEA shelves. And you can put those little pins in there and add shelves, move them around, and all kinds of things. So that's kind of an array list. We take a look at array list demo 4. Same setup. We've got add James, add Catherine, add Bill. We go ahead and display all of them. And this time we say add Mary. So up here I've got add Bill. I'm adding Mary at index 1. So what we're doing is we're taking shelves 1, 2, pushing them down and putting a new shelf 1 in, and shelf 1 is now 2, and shelf 2 is now 3. I now have 4 bookshelves, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Catherine and Bill are going to be pushed down, and Mary's going to go in the place of 1. And then it shows Mary was added to index 1. Here are the items now. And basically there it will display them all over again. Goes through the loop. So there's index 0 James, index 1 Catherine, index 2 Bill. Mary was added to index 1. Here are the items now. Index 0 James, index 1 Mary, ooh, and now Catherine is at index 2 and Bill's at index number 3. So great, beautiful power that an array list can do. We can actually add elements, remove elements, and not have to recreate the entire bookcase all over again. Array list demo 5. There I've got same setup, array list, add James, add Janet, and Bill. I come down here and display all of them. Now, this time I'm going to say namelist.set1 to Susan. This is a replace. It says I want you to take whatever's in bookshelf number 1 and replace it with Susan. So in this case, Janet is gone and Susan takes the place. Now, one of the things I wanted to do is the old way. They had it hard-coded in here. It said, it used to have Catherine up here. And it said Catherine was replaced by Mary. And here are the names now. But I don't like to do that, because if we change Catherine to Janet, I'd have to change it down here as well. So instead what I did is I captured the name, the name in the number 1 element. I say string name replace equals name list dot get whatever's in shelf 1, throw it into there. So I've captured Janet. Then I replace Janet with Susan, and now I say name replace, which is Janet, was replaced with whatever's in name list 1 right now. And here are the items now. So if I run this, it says James, Janet, and Bill, 0, 1, and 2, is now James, Susan, and Bill, 0, 1, and 2. And the great thing is I can come up here and change this back to Catherine. And I can change this to Mary. And I do a save and run. And James, Catherine, Bill. Catherine was replaced with Mary. Here are the names now. James, Mary, Bill. So again, I just had to replace this name in that position, and it automatically brought those names in. No hard coding. Try to avoid hard coding any type of name. Okay, array list demo 6. Now we're getting into some hardcore stuff. In this case, I'm creating an array list. What is the data type I'm putting in here? Well, I'm actually going to grab a bank account object. What is a bank account object? It's right over here. Here's bank account. Bank account has a balance. It has a NOARD constructor. It has a constructor with a double, a constructor with a string, and so on and so forth. So it's got all the methods and all the getters and setters and all the things that we've covered in 155. So I come back over here. So this says that this array list is going to contain bank account objects. And this array list is going to be called list. I instantiate as a new array list with a bank account data. So it's the only type of information that's going to go into this array list are bank account objects. So this first one says list.add. We've seen this before. And we're going to instantiate it as a new bank account. Okay? So it's like instantiating a brand new object. And we've got 100 in here, so that says I'm going to execute the constructor that is expecting a double, which is this guy right here, bank account double starting balance. So what that does is it says balance equals start balance. So this guy, so this array list is going to have 3 separate bank accounts. Here's the first bank account. It's going to have a starting balance of $100. The second bank account is going to have a starting balance of $500. The third bank account is going to have a starting balance of $1,500. And that's what this new does. It's creating a brand new bank account object, throwing it into this list, which is an array list, with that starting balance. So I have three separate bank accounts. They aren't the same object. They're three separate objects. So each bookshelf is holding an object in this case. It's not holding data like an int or a double. Each shelf holds an object. So then we come down here and we say, we'll go through in a standard for loop. List.size, that the size tells us how many elements are in there. This is while this index is less than that size, we're going to keep doing this loop. At the end of every loop, we increase the index by 1. We say bank account equals list. So this is like instantiating a brand new object. In this case, we're creating we're creating an object called account, which is a bank account object. We're going to instantiate this account with the element from that array list. So if that's a 0, we're going to grab the very first element, and throw it into this object called account. What is the data type of the account? It's a bank account object. We're going to say the account at index, whatever the index number is, new line balance, we're going to have the word balance in there, is account.getBalance. So we're going to call this object account, and we're going to execute the method called getBalance. We always know it's a method because it has a left and right parentheses. All methods have parentheses. We go through this guy again. We grab the second bank account, which is the number 1, because the first one is 0, the second one is 1. We get the balance from that account. We come back through this array list. We grab the third account, which is the second, this is number 2 element, and we say account.getBalance. We get the balance of that account. So I'm expecting it to show 100, 500, and 1500. So when I run it, this is the account at index 0. Account at index 0 is the balance is $100. Account at index 1 is the balance of $500. Account at index 2 is $1,500. So again, I can't stress it enough. We have 3 separate bank accounts loaded into this array index. I'm sorry, array list. On page 44, it talks about using the diamond operator. Again, this diamond operator right here is telling it what is the data type we're loading into this array list. That's all it's saying. And it doesn't. Remember, a string is a class. A string is a class. So I can load any class that I create. I can load that into that array list. Okay, so that's all we're going to cover this week is array list. The homework for tonight, you are going to take the homework from week 4, and you are going to create or convert it into an array list. And again, make sure you use that new for loop that we discussed, and that's on the bottom of page 478. And again, that's all in that handout from chapter 7 that I gave you. Any questions you have, or if we need to Skype at home, whatever you need to do, give me a call, email me, whatever you need, and I'll be happy to Skype with you, kind of give you a little mentoring, whatever you need, but don't hesitate to call or ask. We'll see you next week.